Sarada Tanaya Vande Sarada Tanaya Vande Matrurupa Tapasvinim Prananam Pranatirmata Karuna Varunalaye Karuna
In the year 1896, Swami Vivekananda boldly proclaimed at a speech in London, "What the world wants today is 20 men and women who can dare to stand in the street yonder and say that they possess nothing but God." The first president of Sri Sarada Devi, Pravrajika Bharatiprana, actually lived and grew up with this ideal of Swami Vivekananda. She was born in 1894 to a Brahmin family in a small village named Guptipara near the outskirts of Kolkata. This pure and blessed girl was named as Parul. Parul was born on the auspicious day of Ultorath, which is the return journey of the car festival of Lord Jagannath. Her parents were pious and religious. Her mother was very calm and forbearing and was devoted to God and the holy men. Her parents had 6 children after Parul, 3 boys and 3 girls. As 2 of the boys died early and even Parul was sick, her father left the native village and came to Kolkata. In Kolkata, their house was near to Holy Mother's residence in Bagh Bazar and also near the houses of Balram Bose and Girish Ghosh, the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna. Sadhus of Belur Math would often pass through those lanes. Parul used to play there with her friends. On seeing the sadhus, Parul and her friends used to shout cheerfully, "Paramhanser Fauj Jadche, Pak Pak Pak." That is, the Paramhamsa's battalion is passing, quack quack quack. Later in her life, she would narrate this laughingly and say, "Did I then know that I too would belong to that battalion?" Parul started studying in the Sister Nivedita school in 1902. She had met Swamiji a few times with Sister Nivedita and later recalled, "I was then a little girl, so I don't remember much about Swamiji. I only remember that he had impressive personality, well-built features and large beautiful eyes." Swami Saradananda would regularly conduct discourses on the Bhagavad Gita for the older students and adults at Sister Nivedita school. During that time, the young girls would either play in the school courtyard or take a nap. After the discourse, Nivedita would carry them home. While growing up, Parul enjoyed worshipping gods and goddesses. When Parul was 10 or 11 years old, she visited Guptipara with her parents. There, one day she made an image of goddess and said to her mother, "Please call the priest and ask him to perform the puja. She is the goddess Jagaddatri. I do not know how to worship her." But her mother warned her, "My child, you cannot play with the idols like this." But Parul would not listen. Surprisingly enough, the priest readily worshipped the image at their request. That place in Guptipara since then is known as Balakeshwari Tala. Many times between 1902 to 1909, Parul got a chance to visit Holy Mother and Belur Math with Sister Nivedita. As was customary at the time, Parul was married at the age of 12. However, she had no interest in family life. Her dominant characteristic was a contemplative mind. As she grew older, her parents started making arrangements to send her off to the in-laws, and so Parul was in great turmoil. Tired of these efforts, Parul ran away from home but was found and forcefully brought back. Renunciation for a true aspirant is like air is to life or as water is to a fish. So with the help of Sister Sudhira and Ganen Maharaj, Parul escaped from her family at midnight and forever left home at the age of 17 in search of God. This caused an uproar in the house. Her family suspected Sudhira, who acted as if she knew nothing. After a prolonged search, the family consulted a famous astrologer who assured them, "Your daughter is in safe hands under the care of good people." This assurance greatly reduced their anxiety.
विवेकानन्द श्रीपाद पद्मस्पर्श निर्मलं प्रसूनं करसङ्घातैरलूनं शुद्धबालिका शुद्धबालिका.
Sudhira changed Parul's name to Sarala and made provisions for her stay at different places to hide her whereabouts. Wherever Sarala stayed, she would be a great help with all the domestic chores, and so everyone loved her. Sudhira took her to meet Holy Mother and arranged for her initiation. Holy Mother initiated her on the auspicious day of Buddha Purnima in 1911. It was the most blessed day for Sarla. Sudhira and Sarla continued visiting the Holy Mother, sometimes even at night. Holy Mother's love for Sarla increased, and she would always be concerned about her well-being. On October 13th, 1911, Sister Nivedita passed away. Sudhira was shaken by her death and fell ill. She went to Gaya and Varanasi with Sarla and another companion to recover. During this period, they did a lot of japam and meditation on the ghats of the Ganga. The party then went to Vrindavan and performed spiritual austerities with renewed zeal. The austere life and hardships in Vrindavan took a toll on Sudhira's health, and she had to move to Shimla to recuperate. Before leaving to Shimla, Sudhira told Sarla, "Know this for sure, Sri Ramakrishna alone is your own. Hold on to him and pray to him with fervor. He is with you always. He is watching you. Do not seek for help from anyone else. Know that he alone and none else are your own." Actually, this phase of Sarla's life reminds us of the life of a wandering monk, depending solely on God, eating whatever was given, and staying wherever she was allowed to. This life of intense purity and holiness increased her faith in God and developed her inner strength. Sarla continued staying in Vrindavan with Gopi Didi. She reduced her monthly expenses to a minimum 4 annas for renting a room, 3 rupees for Paras Prasad, and a small amount of money for hair oil and jaggery. Paras Prasad was obtained from Govindji's temple at lunch and consisted of rice, dal, chapatis, vegetables, curd, and payas. She saved some prasad for dinner. On Ekadashi days, Paras Prasad was not distributed. Her meals then consisted of dried chapatis preserved from the previous 2 days and crushed in buttermilk to soften them. Sarla's daily routine consisted of visiting temples, reading the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, and doing japam, thus completing 1 lakh repetitions daily. She later said, "In that small room, I sat and repeated his name all the time. No other thought came to my mind." She followed this austere routine for 5 months in Vrindavan, and she was in bliss. Sarla returned to Kolkata on account of her poor health. One day, when she went to Udbodhan to visit Holy Mother, the mother asked her, "My child, where are you staying now? How long will you move around in this way? Now you stay here with me." Sarla was elated and joyfully moved into Holy Mother's house from November 1913. Sudhira was also happy to know that Holy Mother herself had taken Sarla's responsibility. In February 1914, Sudhira arranged for Sarla to get trained as a nurse at the Dufferin Hospital. Golapma, who was very orthodox, was furious. What is Sudhira doing? She is sending a Brahmin girl to the hospital? What is this? It is not proper. Who will eat food cooked by her? Was her initial outburst. Though Golapma strongly opposed, Holy Mother quietly said, "What is wrong? She will come back and serve us." Holy Mother blessed Sarla, saying, "My child, don't be afraid." She also gifted Sarla a nice blanket. After completing her education, Sarla returned to the Nivedita school and would visit Holy Mother whenever Mother was at Udbodhan. In 1918, when Holy Mother was at Jairambati, she fell seriously ill. Swami Saradananda decided to take few doctors to Jairambati. He wrote to Sudhira, "Sarla will come with me to nurse Holy Mother." Then Swami Saradananda left for Jairambati by the night train along with Yoginma, Golapma, 2 brahmacharis, 2 doctors and Sarla. When Holy Mother felt a little better, everybody returned to Kolkata. Only Sarla stayed on at Jairambati with the mother. At Jairambati, Sarla witnessed an extraordinary event, nothing short of a miracle. One day, unexpectedly, many devotees arrived at mealtime in Mother's house. Everyone was worried as to how all will be fed. But Mother calmly went to the kitchen, stirred every food item, adding a little salt to some. When the food was served, there was no shortage and everybody ate heartily. Then Sarla realized that Mother was indeed the goddess Annapurna who feeds the entire universe. Sarla's relationship with Holy Mother was very special and unique. Once they were travelling from Koalpara to Vishnupur by a horse carriage. A woman who was also travelling along pointed to Sarla and asked Mother, "Who is she?" Mother said, "My daughter, the youngest and the dearest."
प्राणात्ययोपचरणा सुप्रसन्ना जगन्मयी ददौ तस्यै ज्ञानभक्ति प्रज्ञाविवेकसंहृदं प्राणात्ययोपचरणा सुप्रसन्ना जगन्मयी.
Holy Mother's health was deteriorating day by day. Hence, Swami Saradananda brought her to Udbodhan in the beginning of 1920. Sarla now knew that Holy Mother has withdrawn her mind and would soon depart from this world. Sarla wept on seeing Holy Mother's condition and told her, "If you leave us, I shall not be able to live." At this point, Mother made a very significant declaration that, "Eventually, you will come to me only, my child. But before that, you will have to do my work." We can see Holy Mother's words coming true in Sarla, that is, our Bharatiprana Mataji's life. Defying all medical treatment, Holy Mother attained Mahasamadhi on July 20th, 1920. Sarla was with her till the final moment. When the body was being taken to Belur Math, Sarla did not want to go, but Sister Sudhira took her there. After returning, Sarla told Yoginma, "It was good I could go. I felt as if I offered myself at the feet of Mother. When the pyre was lit, I mentally offered myself as an oblation in the fire." There was a great void within Sarla after this tragic event. She could not even visit Udbodhan. So, Sudhira took Sarla on a pilgrimage along with few other women. They visited Kashi, Haridwar, Vrindavan, Agra, Prayag, and other holy places and were returning to Kashi by train. During midnight, Sudhira lost her balance, and as the door was open, she fell down from the moving train. When Swami Saradananda heard about Sudhira's demise, he commented, Sudhira had the vision of her chosen ideal unexpectedly. Therefore, she could not control herself. In 1921, as instructed by Swami Saradananda, Sarla went to work at a school in Komela. During vacations, she would come to Udbodhan and the Nivedita school. Holy Mother's temple in Jairambati was to be consecrated on April 19, 1923 on the auspicious day of Akshaya Tritiya. So, Swami Saradananda asked Sarla to come a few days earlier and help with the preparations. She stayed in Jairambati for many days during this period. As Yogin Ma's health was not well, Swami Saradananda asked Sarla to come to Udbodhan and nurse her. She served Yogin Ma with great love and devotion for a year. One day, Sarla wept and told Yogin Ma, Mother passed away, Sudhira Di passed away. I feel unhappy. I also wish to die. Yogin Ma rebuked Sarla. What are you saying? First realize God and then you may go. I bless you. May you realize your chosen ideal. On the occasion of Holy Purnima in April, there was a lunar eclipse. Yogin Ma asked Sarla to perform Purashcharan during this period. She performed Japam on the banks of the Ganges and fasted for the whole day. On returning, Swami Saradananda inquired about her Japam count and asked her to increase it. At dawn the next day, he performed a homa and asked Sarla to offer oblations in the fire. He gave her tantric sannyasa and the name of Sri Bharati along with an ochre cloth. Maharaj told her, continue dressing in white. Later on, at an appropriate time, you can wear the ochre cloth. Yogin Ma was delighted as a desire that Sarla should receive sannyasa from Saradananda was fulfilled. In June, Yogin Ma passed away. Golap Ma's health was also declining. Sarla continued to stay at Udbodhan to look after her. 6 months later, in December, Golap Ma also passed away. In 1925, Swami Saradananda took Sarla to Kashi along with Swami Nikhilananda, Sanyal and a few other people. From there, they went on a pilgrimage to Jagannath Puri and Bhuvaneshwar and then returned to Kolkata. Sarla once visited Belur Mutt when Mahapurush Maharaj, Swami Shivananda was the president. When Sarla offered her pranams to him, he said, Sarla, give me your 2 hands. She did not understand what the revered Swami meant. So she asked him, what did you say, Maharaj? Then again he said, these 2 hands of yours have served Mahashakti, the primordial mother. Give them to me. I will put them in a gold frame and keep them. In 1926, at the Belur Mutt, the first convention of the Ramakrishna Mutt and Mission was held. Swami Saradananda often went to Belur Mutt for the work related to the convention. One day, he called Sarla and said, after finishing my work here, I will go to Varanasi. I will take you along. Be ready and do not take any heavy responsibility. On August 6, 1927, Swami Saradananda suffered a paralysis attack. For 13 days, he remained in that condition. On August 19th, this great monk breathed his last. Usha Rani Devi, one of Sarla's companion sister, asked her how she could endure so much misery. Sarla replied, "Sometimes I felt strong within. I reflected in my mind as to why I left home. I have passed through many experiences. The determination that I must attain the goal for which I renounced everything kept me going forward." The day Swami Saradananda left his body, Swami Shivananda heard him saying in his sleep, "All these people are left behind. I am going to Varanasi to Lord Vishwanath." When Sarla heard this, she thought Swami Saradananda must have definitely gone to Varanasi. When alive, he had told her that he would take her with him. Sarla therefore decided to go to Varanasi.
Sarda Sanga Sandipta Jnana Pavaka Tapascharna Shila Sa Kashi Dhama Nivasini Kashi Dhama Nivasini.
In Kashi, Sarla performed austerities for almost 27 years. Back when she was in Kolkata, Swami Sardananda used to send Sarla to the homes of devotees to nurse them in need. The devotees would pay Swami Sardananda for her services. As instructed by Holy Mother, Swami Sardananda had set those earnings aside. Sarla neither knew about this nor was she curious to know. This money proved useful during her long stay in Kashi, where she lived a very simple and austere life steeped in spiritual practices. The senior monks of the Belur Mutt maintained regular communication and were aware about her spiritual progress through the means of letters and other medium.
Gangatharangaramaniya jatakalapam Gauri nidantara vibhushita vamabhagam Narayana priyamadangamadapaharam Varanasi purapati Bhaja Vishwanatham.
In a letter sent by Swami Shivananda to her at Kashi, he said, "Your work of serving Holy Mother, Yogin Ma, Golap Ma, and Swami Sardananda is over. Now immerse yourself in chanting the name of God." But her life in Kashi was full of trials and tribulations. There was no suitable place for her to live an austere life, so she had to keep changing her residence. People did not understand her indifference to the world and criticized her. Oh, how much she had to suffer! She surrendered herself completely to the Lord's all-powerful will. As the fire of renunciation was raging in her heart, she decided to step into the streets of Varanasi and live there, with the sky for roof and grass for bed. Then, Ganen Maharaj and Satish Maharaj arranged for her accommodation elsewhere and within a month bought a house for her, now known as Sharda Kutir. Sarla could not bear giving up Japam under any pretext. When she had no house of her own, she did not perform regular japa, but meditated for many hours. She would go with a firm resolution to do a certain number of japam and would return only after completing it, no matter how late it would be. She would take her simple meals quickly and go to either the Shashwamedh Ghat, Harishchandra Ghat or Manikarnika Ghat to perform her spiritual practices. After the house was built, she remained indoors and continued her sadhana with the same zeal. In 1936, Sarla's eyesight became weak. She was unable to go out daily to bathe in the Ganga and visit the Vishwanath temple. Later, the Second World War started and prices of articles went up. Managing her daily chores became difficult, but by Mother's grace, Sarla could lead an austere and contented life. During Sri Ramakrishna's birth centenary in 1936, Sarla came to Kolkata and stayed at the Nivedita school for a year. She returned to Varanasi after the opening ceremony of the Ramakrishna temple at Belur. After that, another 12 years passed in silent austerity, self-discipline and devotion. Holy Mother was preparing Sarla fully for her work. Meanwhile, there was a group of sincere and enthusiastic young girls in different parts of Kolkata and Kerala ready to renounce everything for the Lord and already engaged in Ramakrishna mission work. The senior monks of Belur Mutt understood that these young band of girls will need a matured and elder senior who would be a true representative of Holy Mother and be their guide and an exemplar of the values for which the Mutt stood. Sri Sarada Mutt would require a president who would initiate and maintain the Guru Parampara, this spiritual tradition of Holy Mother. Who could be better suited for this than Sarada Devi, they thought. She was a renunciate of the highest order. She had been initiated by Holy Mother and received Tantric Sannyasa from Swami Saradananda. She had lived with and served Holy Mother herself for many years. Being closely related to the Ramakrishna movement from her childhood, she had the privilege of being in the company of the people of the highest spiritual caliber like Swami Saradananda, Sister Nivedita, Sister Sudhira, Yogin Ma and Golap Ma. And her personal life was luminous with austerity and spiritual experiences. In April 1954, Sarla Didi had come to Jairam Bati to help in Holy Mother's birth centenary celebrations. At that time, Swami Shankarananda was also there. Swami Shankarananda called upon Sarla and told her, "When we start a mutt for women, you will have to go there." Sarla replied, "It is not possible for me." Then Swami Shankarananda said, "If it has been possible to get this work done through me, it can be done through you also. Just as you stayed with Holy Mother, give that training to these girls. I am returning to Kolkata today. I will contact you when everything is finalized." There was great faith, respect and love between them. So at his request, she gave up her secluded solitary life at Varanasi and went to Kolkata. Sarla Didi came to Nivedita school on 7th July 1954. On 8th July, she discussed the matter relating to women's mutt with the trustees of Belur Mutt. On the morning of 10th July, she took her bath in Ganga and went to Udbodhan house to pray to Holy Mother. She took with her the pictures of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Sarada Devi and came to the house at Entally along with a few brahmacharinis. Throughout her 27 years of stay in Varanasi, she had worshipped these pictures daily. Swami Shankarananda arrived from Belur Mutt along with Swamis Madhavananda and Abhayananda. At an auspicious moment, he placed those pictures on the altar of the shrine and offered flowers. He advised the brahmacharinis to lead an inner life of spirituality and put Sarala Didi in charge of them. Thus, the Entally ashram became the forerunner for the first independent monastic organization for women. There they were spending their time in worship, study of shastras and religious practices such as meditation, japa and performing their daily chores. The sole purpose of this life in seclusion was to develop deeper faith in the ideals of Sri Ramakrishna and Sri Sarada Devi and to make themselves worthy of that ideal. On December 2nd, 1954, Sri Sarada Mutt was established. Swami Shankarananda, the then president of Belur Mutt, performed the consecration ceremony of the temple. The great dream of Swami Vivekananda, creation of a women's mutt, was fulfilled. It was a historic event, unprecedented in the annals of time. It was the first time women in the world would independently govern a monastic institution.
युगाचार्य कल्पिते तु युगचक्र प्रवर्तने नारीमठ कर्णधार सुदक्षा संघनायिका सुदक्षा संघनायिका.
On 1st January 1959, the birth anniversary of Holy Mother, Sri Bharati and 7 other brahmacharinis performed the Vedic Viraja home and were given sannyas diksha by Swami Shankarananda. Sri Bharati was given the new name Pravrajika Bharatiprana. In August of the same year, the authorities of the Belur Mutt made the sannyasinis trustees of Sri Sarada Mutt and handed over the entire responsibility for the functioning of the mutt to them. The new trustees formed their own working committee and started running the mutt independently. As the president of the mutt, Pravrajika Bharatiprana gave sannyasa to 8 brahmacharinis after Mahalaya in the same year. She started initiating devotees from 6th December 1959 onwards. Thus, her quiet life of sadhana in Varanasi ended and a life of spiritual ministration ensued. Mataji disliked all superfluity. She lived frugally but prudently. She kept everything neat and tidy. Her routine was so well regulated that one could set the watch by her timings. Under the stewardship of Bharatiprana Mataji, Sri Sarada Mutt began conducting welfare activities for the public. So, they established Ramakrishna Sarada Mission Association in 1960. In the same year, its branch center Ramakrishna Sarada Mission Vivekananda Vidya Bhavan was started. In 1963, Matri Bhavan, a maternity hospital, science and industrial departments in the Nivedita school, Entali Ashram, which is a women's welfare center, and a new branch center of mission at Baruipara were established. The centenary celebrations of Swami Vivekananda were observed on a grand scale at Sri Sarada Mutt in January 1963. In 1965 and 1968, 2 new Sri Sarada Mutt centers were started at Chennai and Trichur respectively. The final work performed by Mataji was the establishment of a mission center at Delhi in 1970. Over a period of 11 years, from 1959 to 1970, she conducted spiritual ministry and spread the work of the mutt. During this time, she had the opportunity to travel throughout India and visit many places of pilgrimage. She would visit every center of the mission in Kolkata once a year and would spend a day or 2 there. In all of Mataji's actions, one could feel that she realized the living presence of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, and Swamiji. A Pujarini recounts, in the winter of 1956 or 57, one early morning when Mataji stopped at the central door to offer her pranams in the shrine, she softly called me by name and anxiously said, "What have you done? Today it is very cold. Pull the shawl round Sri Ramakrishna up to the neck, else he will catch cold." Mataji's care and concern about the master made me conscious of his living presence. A sannyasini once asked her, "Have you seen Sri Ramakrishna and Holy Mother after they left their mortal bodies?" Mataji replied, "I do not see them, but I feel they are holding my hands. I have nothing to fear." Mataji was graciousness itself when it came to accepting things prepared by devotees with devotion. During one of her tours to South India, one day a devotee offered her a snack, but it was a little hard to chew. So Mataji was given another snack, but she insisted on taking the same one and ate it with difficulty. When asked, she said, The devotees bring these things expecting that she would take them and they themselves would be blessed. So she paid proper respect to their love and labor. Bharatiprana Mataji's birthday was celebrated with great pomp on July 20th, 1972. The then president of Ramakrishna Mutt, revered Swami Vireshwarananda, sent her an ochre robe, a shawl, a big umbrella, and a beautiful flower garland. The next day, Mataji suddenly fell ill. Her physical health was weak due to many diseases. For the next 6 months, her health fluctuated and was slowly deteriorating. During her last illness, even in such serious condition, Ma would always be concerned about everyone. To the sannyasinis who would be by her side at night, she would say, "Apply a little Odomos, then mosquitoes will not bite you." She would inquire with her attendant, "Have you had your meal? Could you rest a bit at noon?" She would forget her own pain in thinking about the welfare of others. On 25th January 1973, it was Swami Vivekananda's Tithi Puja. While lying down on the bed, Mataji inquired about all the programs. On 20th January, her condition worsened. Then she called Dayapranaji and asked her to check the date of Ekadashi in the almanac. Dayapranaji replied, "It is 30th January. Since 29th January, Mataji was on glucose drip. In the evening, she had a cerebral attack and her blood pressure fell gradually. At 2:30 in the night, all the members of the mutt gathered in a room and started chanting the name of Sri Ramakrishna. Suddenly, amidst this chanting, Mataji started repeating, "Om Satchidananda Brahma, Om Satchidananda Brahma, Shivoham, Shivoham," and others also joined her. The chanting became louder and louder, which created a solemn, beatific vibration, and the room was surcharged with holiness. The whole night was permeated by the same chanting of Brahma Mantra, that is, Om Satchidananda Brahma, Shivoham, Shivoham. This continued to the next day. 30th January, the Ekadashi day, was also the last day. She refused the glucose drip, but only took Ganga water and Charanamrita. The name of Sri Ramakrishna was continuously heard from her room, and the devotees sat silently outside. In the morning, Mataji started chanting stotras and verses from Gita as per her daily routine, and monastic members joined her in chanting. In between, suddenly she started whispering, "May good come to everyone. May ignorance be removed." Thus, she prayed for welfare of the world and blessed everyone. Again, she continued chanting, "Aham Brahmasmi, Aham Brahmasmi, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya," and gradually she merged with Satchidananda Brahman. She was conscious till the very end, and in the afternoon at 2:50 p.m. took her last breath with Sri Ramakrishna's mantra on her lips. As she left her body, her face shone with a radiant and divine glow. Most revered Bharatiprana Mataji's life was a luminous saga of austerity, service, sacrifice, and holiness. Swami Vivekananda said that even if one woman realized Brahman, became a Brahmavid, thousands will be inspired by her. We hope this magnanimous holy life will inspire numberless women and men through countless generations.
Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham.